Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and discussion time, talking about Invest Area 95L. We're going to be monitoring this very closely because it looks like it's trying to come together fairly quickly down in the Caribbean Sea, real close to the Grand Cayman area. National Hurricane Center now giving it a high chance of development over the next several days, in their wording saying that a tropical depression is likely to form. So here we are. As I mentioned in my morning update, the models this year have just not been as helpful as we have seen in years past with what we call tropical cyclogenesis, trying to pick up on these things before they happen. And so here we are once again, not necessarily playing catch up, because we have satellites out there. We can see what's happening. It's not like an earthquake that seemingly comes out of nowhere, or a tornado that can form with only minutes of warning. That kind of thing. But it would be nice if we could see in the model guidance 3, 5, 7 days out, oh, there could be a hurricane threat or whatever. It just helps with planning. It really does. So here we are. Red X down in the Northwest Caribbean, 70% chance of development. And as they say here in the bottom part of the paragraph, interests in the region, interest down there, from the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, southern Florida, the Keys, etc., even the Northwest Bahamas. The whole area needs to be watching this really closely over the next several days. It could bring heavy rain. Already seeing some heavy rain. Adam down there in Grand Cayman mentioning on Twitter to me that it's been kind of squally down there, kind of nasty, and that's going to continue over the next several days. It's going to be kind of slow moving, and it's going to sit over very, very warm ocean heat content that is prevalent in this area, and it's going to tap into that. And so it just looks like it's going to try to develop. I mean, we can look at the satellite imagery here from this afternoon here from the weathernerds.org site. Loosely organized still, but it's definitely trying to come together here, and even some lightning. It's funny because I just asked Adam. He's Adam McDoom on Twitter. If you follow Adam, you know who I'm talking about. And he was just mentioning to me on Twitter how nasty it's been down there. And I said, hey, did you see any lightning? And that was before I even looked at this. What the heck? I mean, anyway, it's just weird. It's like, hey, have you seen any Hey, have you seen any bags of money laying around? If it was only that easy. But yes, there is some lightning just offshore of the northwest corner of Grand Cayman there, and if you're out on the beach, I bet you can hear some of the thunder from that. It's a really strong updraft right there, creating that lightning. But the overall progress of 95L is one towards getting better organized, and deep convection is starting to build, a little bit of banding associated with it, and I think this will slowly, I don't think it's going to be too rapid, but slowly and steadily this is coming together. And I mean, just look at all the clues in here. The air is coming in this way. You can just look at these cloud streamers coming in. Convergence, air coming together, wrapping in counterclockwise down at the surface, trying to bring the air in around a common low pressure area in here. And then in the upper levels, a very, very big clue. See how the air is fanning outward and not going across in one particular direction like that. The whole thing isn't just sheared off from southwest to northeast or west to east or whatever. There is a defined and evident upper level anticyclonic flow in the atmosphere, and that allows this bubbling underneath to be very efficient and the process to begin, the process of convection, the release of the latent heat down there that's trapped in the ocean, in this case the Caribbean Sea, and the process continues until it can't. That's all it is. It's just a thermodynamic process. We happen to name these invests and then depressions, storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin anyway, in the Pacific, and in the East or West Pacific they're called typhoons. But the bottom line is it's a process. It's a piece of the atmosphere using heat and energy and all kinds of interesting things. Anyway, back to reality here. I'm kind of getting off the deep end there, but it is fascinating. It's just too bad that they cause problems. And it is the fact that they do cause problems that we have to watch closely and we can look for clues here, like we see the vorticity there becoming better defined, as I showed you earlier today. Now it's even more defined, trying to concentrate in there. And then we also have these nice tools looking at what we call scatterometer data, where satellites way, way out in outer space can look down, and using sophisticated technology, they are able to give us an idea of how the wind is behaving using scatterometer data. It's complicated. We won't get into the physics of it, but the bottom line is you get to look at these little wind flags. Computers are able to pick all this stuff up, and we get these different wind flags in here, and it shows you the circulation, and there's definitely a circulation developing down here. You can clearly see that. And then some of these flags are indicating some stronger winds in here, and some of these might be contaminated with heavy rain, what they call contaminated barbs, and when they do the analysis here. But the bottom line, this data from this passage, and it's a swath. The satellite comes across and it's orbiting in such a way that it's a swath, and so you have to get lucky. Yeah, and I think it goes this way. The satellite actually might go that way. I don't know. Bottom line is we get a swath. I don't know everything. I know enough. And we get this little cut through the general satellite field, with clouds and everything. But in this situation, the scatterometer data is showing us the shape of the wind field and, to some extent, the intensity. And it's getting there. It's getting there. And this will be a depression probably before too long. Now, in terms of intensification and what might happen with this, I want to talk about this just a little bit, and I'm going to just tell you right now, I thought about it. I'm not going to show you any models, because why? They haven't been very reliable up to now, so why even waste time with that? Let's wait until we have a depression, and I think that's going to happen. I mean, the Hurricane Center is giving it a 70% chance. So let's wait until we get a tropical depression down there, a well-defined circulation, and then we can track that feature. We can actually track what's called a vortex, because it'll exist. Right now, it does not exist in the present, and some of the models it does later on. I mean, it's just, we're not going to waste time on the models. So let's look at, instead, just a couple of clues here. All right, as I mentioned already, we know that we have a pre-existing system. The Hurricane Center is outlining that. It's Invest Area 95L. And it is located down here in the Caribbean Sea. Okay, we know we have that. The pre-existing features there. The upper level winds are currently favorable, and the water temperatures are warm. So those three things alone should allow this to develop over the next 24 to 48 hours. Beyond that time, I don't know what's going to happen. We don't. Nobody knows. I mean, you can look at the spaghetti models all you like, and some of them are over here, some of them are over here, some over here, some over here, and they're wiggly and squiggly, and that's pretty much what it looks like. I'm going to be honest with you. And so why even fiddle with it? So let's look at what could happen. Now, I want to put to rest right now, like I've already seen people kind of trying to play the hero here, and I understand being optimistic, and you don't want to go off and be hyping stuff and blowing stuff out of proportion. I get that. But at the same time, you have to be careful in developing a false sense of security and false hope on the other side, that you sort of hype it the other way. And one of the things I saw today was quite a few people talking about, Gulf of Mexico's cooled down significantly. I saw somebody use that terminology, significantly cooled. And if you're talking about where it was at the end of August, that is a correct statement. But it doesn't mean we're off the hook. And I want to show you this graphic here to help illustrate my point. And that is, when we're talking tropical cyclones, we're looking for about 26 Celsius or higher. That's about 79.5 degrees Fahrenheit. For our argument, let's just call it 80 degrees. So from the Atlantic, cutting across Florida, I mean, it doesn't do that, but I'm just saying, this is that isotherm, line of equal temperature. 26 Celsius right there. Everything to the north of that line is not very favorable for tropical cyclones to develop or pass through. But that does not mean, and I'm going to make this real clear, that if, gigantic if here, okay, I'm just saying if, you were to have a hurricane coming up out of the Caribbean towards like Mexico Beach or something, and this is just an example, Panama City, that area, Cape San Blas, whatever, and it was moving fast enough, yes, it will weaken as it approaches shore, but this does not prevent you from having a hurricane. It's not like the water temperatures up here against the shelf, that's what that's called, is the shelf water. It's not like these are 50 degrees and then this is 80. So please, I get it. We don't want it. We've had enough hurricanes this year. I mean, my goodness. But please understand, when you kind of like, Gulf's too cool, can't happen. I would argue otherwise. And people were saying that about Delta early on. And yes, we got very lucky with Delta that it was later in the season. We had some fronts that had come through already, and the water temperatures near the shelf there were cooler. But it was not cool enough to completely zap Delta and sap Delta of its strength. And we still had a solid hurricane make landfall in an area where they had just dealt with a Category 4. So I'm just, keeping it in perspective. Believe me, the Gulf of Mexico, 90% of it is warm enough for a significant hurricane. And beyond that, let's just wait and see. And if you're just, if you're curious about Florida as a whole, pretty much from Cedar Key all the way down to, and even over on the east side, Daytona, St. Augustine, and Point South, more like Ormond Beach and Point South, Daytona, that region, you're also warm enough for a significant hurricane. So the Florida Peninsula is most at risk, and we know that already from climatology. So we got to watch this system. We got to watch, because we don't know. It's been one of those years, as you are well aware, that things have been happening a little bit different than what we are used to. So as it comes out of the Caribbean down here, they're expecting it'll develop somewhere in this area, probably move into the southeast Gulf over here, and we'll wait and see. I have no idea. I honestly don't, as to where this is going to end up. What does my gut tell me? And experience, climatology, okay? Probably somewhere in Florida. Probably. If I had to place a bet, I would say somewhere in Florida. And if I was really honing in, when it's all said and done, climatology suggests anywhere from Cedar Key down to the Florida Keys. That's what I would guess at this point. But we'll see. I could be completely wrong. One thing to keep an eye on going forward, and I'm just showing you because that's my job. I got to keep you aware, and, I understand that sometimes the news is not always good, but do not get mad at me for that. It is what it is. What are we looking at? This is the Madden-Julian oscillation from the ECMWF, the MJO index, valid from now, roughly, all the way out to about the 6th day of November. So this gets us past the election day of November 3rd. And I bring that up because this MJO by the Euro here is forecast to kind of scoot across what we call the null phase, and the ensemble guidance, that's that grayish area. Bottom line, it's going to be heading into phases 8, 1, and 2. And that favors Western Hemisphere tropical cyclone activity during hurricane season. In other words, another way to look at it, and yet another way, is if it's a little bit favorable now, and it is over a pretty small area where 95L is located, we're only going to get more favorable going forward on a bigger scale, a much larger scale. Most of the Caribbean is going to be dominated by favorable upper-level winds over the next 10 days or so. And this 95L is developing as that begins. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then the other part of this, and I know you do this because I do it too, if you go look at the long-term guidance from something like the GFS that we all know goes out 16 days, and you keep seeing these hurricanes that develop in the GFS, that is why. The model guidance is sensing the change in the pattern to one that is more favorable. The individual hurricanes that you see form here and there, the 18Z, the 12Z, the 6Z, the 0Z, oh, look at that, look at this, look at the para-GFS, blah, blah, blah. I get it. We all see it. Don't worry about the individual details. Look at this, what I'm showing you here. The pattern is going to favor more activity as we get into November, and it is not out of the realm of possibility. And I'm just throwing this out here because 2020, right? But honest to goodness, mathematically speaking, it is possible that we could have a disruptive hurricane, mainly for Florida. It's a non-zero chance around election time. Can you imagine? And if somebody doesn't think about it, then we're caught by surprise, all right? And I've been thinking about it. It's like, the closer we get here to the end of the month, and we know that Election Day is November 3rd, also my birthday. Happy birthday to me. And all that chaos that we know is coming. Can you imagine if we had a hurricane on top of that, even a couple of days before? Or what if we have one on November 3rd? I've ruined my birthday, but we have to be on the kind of lookout for this. It's not particularly something I'm very concerned with, but with that pattern getting more favorable, it is a non-zero chance that we could have more than we bargained for to kind of end 2020 as we get into the last 60 days of the month, the year. November, December, the last 60 days of the year. So wouldn't that be something? So there you go. Talk about it amongst yourselves, all right? Ruminate on that thought. Hopefully it won't happen, but if it does, we talked about it here first. At least you were aware that it was a possibility. And it is a possibility. Just statistically speaking, it's still hurricane season. Anyhow, that is it. We'll take a look at what goes on. I'll post about it. I'm on Twitter at Hurricane Track. We are supported, of course, by our crowdfunding group via Patreon and all that good stuff. So there you go. Have a good rest of your Friday afternoon. As always, thanks for tuning in and listening and watching and whatever with me. I appreciate it. I am Mark Studd with HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you over the weekend.